What's up guys, it's Scoopman5000. Today we're back for another action figure review, and we're looking at the brand new Marvel Legends House of X Wolverine. A figure which I didn't know that I needed until I saw those promotional images of it, at which point I went on Amazon, instantly pre-ordered it, and now here we are a couple months later, and he's actually coming out pretty timely on Amazon compared to like the rest of retail. So it's a rare case where I have an Amazon pre-order and I don't feel behind everybody else. And this is really the only character from the wave I was interested in. I mean, they're all iconic characters, but they're not looks I'm very familiar with. But when you get to this Wolverine, this is a very specific looking Wolverine, or at least in my mind it is. And I'll get into that once I get him out of the box. And speaking of which, it's the standard Marvel Legends. Obviously, we have the House of X branding. We have it in the background. We have the logo, and then even some little symbols on the bottom here. I'm in no way familiar with House of X or any of its designs, really, or any of the story. But this is really just a classic brown suited Wolverine for a lot of us. As always, each side of the packaging, you get some nice comic looking art. And then on the back is some pretty cool branding for the House of X. It's a nice white box, a big circular image of that artwork. And then we have the read-up which reads, "With adamantium claws unleashed, Logan is prepared to make the ultimate sacrifice in the fight for freedom for all mutants." So again, I don't know what's up with House of X. The Sentinel I had no interest in. Luckily, he doesn't come with any pieces. That does about cover the packaging for Wolverine, so let's get to it and let's slash him open. And here's the Wolverine out of the packaging, and his only accessory is an alternate head, in which we're getting him with a little bit of a goatee, which is unusual. I'm sure that's specific to House of X, but I do like the expression. It's a bit more stoic, but stern at the same time. He's staring down an opponent, or he's stalking some prey, something like that I'm getting the look of here. But that being said, I think I even prefer this head sculpt. So really two awesome, expressive head sculpts. A big reason to get this figure, but for me, I got a very weird one. My very specific reason for picking up this mostly brown Wolverine is because the second I saw this, my mind went to the classic Marvel Mini-Mates, specifically the Gaijin Wolverine. And I don't even know why he's called the Gaijin Wolverine. I've tried to look into it and it seems like there's really no reason. And if anything, something like this guy here would be more like a Gaijin, because he actually was like a samurai or something. But semantics aside, Gaijin Wolverine, that's just one of the classic Mini-Mates that I grew up with. That's really the first thing I ever collected. And so something about this figure just evoked that to me. And I have, I think, enough Wolverines now. Like, I have a bunch of different looks, and the movie ones were really the main ones I was after. But I had to add just one more Wolverine. Had to make that exception because it really just evoked that Marvel Mini-Mates look. And I know that's very weird, very niche, very specific to me. I think for most collectors, this is just going to be a brown suit Wolverine, which I guess the original came out so many years ago. So even at that, I'm sure there's a lot of people that need this kind of look for Wolverine in their collection. But enough talking, and let's get to playing with our action figures here. I already pointed out how I love this head sculpt. It looks like, you know, that classic cover where he's kind of looking through the blades here. That'll probably be what your thumbnail is going to look like, something like that. I think recently, too, a lot of Marvel Legends, the colors seem to be getting a lot better. I really do dig even the brown here. There's some differences in color, but the yellow on here is pretty cool. It's exactly what I'd think when I think of a Wolverine in this brown suit. It's a bit darker. It's a bit more like a mustard or something like that, but that's the Gaijin Wolverine Mini-Mates to me. So this is exactly what I'm looking for. When you bring in this look, this is 90s. This is Jim Lee cartoon. But for me, this is really like the specific toy version of Wolverine that I grew up with. But now I have two very different looks, so I'm always going to be happy with that. I will say when I first saw the renders, I thought this was new sculpt, and that excited me. But actually looking at him, and I'll bring in this Wolverine again, I think I'm swapping back and forth a lot. But a lot of the sculpt here looks the same or similar to me. This Wolverine does look smaller. I feel like he looks beefier, but maybe that's just the colors throwing me off. There's definitely lots of differences here. It could be something as simple as the brown shoulders compared to the exposed ones here, making this one look wider. But when I look at specific muscles and fabric materials, I think this is just a lot of reuse of this Wolverine figure. You can see it in the arms here. But that isn't a bad thing. This Wolverine buck has gotten a lot of use, and because it's one of the best and it really captures the physique of comic book Wolverine very well. And there's no reason, I guess, not to reuse it. But me personally, I'm a bit disappointed just because I really thought this was something different. But I guess I just didn't recognize this reused body when I was looking at it in a 3D render. As for the paint, it's pretty good here. You're just getting like the yellow paint in the sides here. But there's just the slightest hint of it like bleeding through the darker color underneath. Whenever you're painting a bright yellow, I feel like yellow especially, but a lot of bright colors on top of dark like this, that's going to happen. So really, it's not bad for the difficulty of doing that. And there isn't much other paint to speak of. You do get a really nice kind of printed look for the hair on his arms here, which is essential for, you know, a real good, accurate Wolverine figure. And then I guess the only real unique pieces here would actually be once you get to the gauntlets and the hands themselves. And when we get to the hands, the gloves, and of course his claws, that's something I always seem to have a big issue with my Marvel Legends, my Wolverine figures. You see this one, I have the bone claws in, and that's because the silver ones on this guy broke. So I have them in kind of the feral look, which I like, but I did have them silver originally. I'm gonna have to go to eBay maybe. I know they make like real metal claws for these guys. That's definitely the way to go. That being said, these do feel a lot better, and I do love the shape of these a lot. And obviously these are drawing from different comic books, different designs, but let's say we bring in the Age of Apocalypse with an appropriately missing claw. Like I'm saying, these things fall off a lot. But if you just look at the shape here, I just really prefer this look. But that's really just like classic Wolverine stuff. I always think of that covering his face with the reflections coming through. So this is a really cool shape for the claws here, and they do feel a lot sturdier than my previous figures. To go over his articulation, I guess if you have some other Wolverine figures, you know what to expect. That's a pretty impressive hinge joint going all the way up. It actually, the head even pops off before it could even stop. Almost feels like you can do a little bit more, but that's perfect for like a lunging at you kind of pose or anything like that. This is plenty of movement. The head is dipping down, also really good. And because it's kind of loose on the neck, you can kind of move it wherever you really need to. You can shift it. You can get a little tilt. Torso is going back that far, and it really crunches all the way forward. This dude can almost make a full circle out of himself. He's got really some of the best butterflies, if you even call them that. These are just total swiveled hinges in the entire middle of his arms here. So he can go real wide, get a real nice animalistic pose, or he can go inwards and kind of get a bit of a hunch, a bit of a flex. And I just love when figures can do this, and these Wolverines are some of the best examples. The rest of the arms are pretty stock. You got some hinge and swivel action going on. You do have the upper bicep cut, the double jointed elbow, pretty limited by some sculpting here in his gigantic biceps. And then you got hinge and swivels at the wrist. They're a bit tight. I'm not going to play with them too much. The torso is going to rotate, and it's hidden by that belt, which I didn't really mention. That is also a unique part to this figure. The legs split out about 45 degrees, not the best. The upper thigh cut sits a little bit low. You do get a nice double jointed knee, almost goes all the way. No cuts at the boot. You're getting some hinges and then some ankle rocker. And that covers the Wolverine. So now let's go ahead and let's do some comparisons. And we'll start it with the classic Wolverine designs. That includes the classic debut version that came with the Hulk. And then we got the Love Triangle version. This has really been the go-to for collectors, and including myself, for a Wolverine. But now I think this one kind of sits there too. And it's if you prefer the brown suit or the tiger stripe. And for me, I think I actually lean towards the brown suit and this new figure. But I love all three of these, and they have different reasons for owning them. And I think with a character like Wolverine, you can't really just own one. You got to get all the different looks. And speaking of which, here's some dark, some edgy, some extreme versions of Wolverine. That's the Age of Apocalypse and the Uncanny retro-carded figure. And I guess this even more so exemplifies what I was saying. These are just wildly different looks. It's the same character, but it's, you know, it's all different universes, different looks. And I think it's cool to have, you know, this many of one character, all these different representations. And we'll bring in some other mutants. We have Jean Grey and we have Rogue. These are the two most recent classic 90s versions of these characters. And you can see just how much shorter Wolverine is, but obviously if you have the other Wolverines, you're used to that. And that's how it is. That's how it's always been with Wolverine. You know, the Hugh Jackman movies really, I guess, skewed our visions of Wolverine. But, you know, comic book, source material stuff, this is how it is. So this is really perfect scale for these characters. And even more X-Men classic goodness, we got the Beast figure, who's really expensive now. I'm glad I got him when I did. And then we have the Cyclops from the same Love Triangle 3-pack as Jean Grey. And really, these X-Men Marvel Legends really are some of the crown jewels, some of the highlights of the whole Marvel Legends line. And then for a villain side of things here, we got Donald Pierce and we got Emma Frost from the Hellfire Club box set. And this Wolverine's going to make a great foe for these two. But we're not done yet. We're bringing some more broader Marvel Universe stuff here. I mean, we got the classics. This is Spider-Man and Hulk. Hulk, of course, you got to pan up to even appreciate. But these three right here, this is really Marvel in the early 2000s when I was really growing up and I had these mini-mates and things like that. This is it right here. Before the MCU, this was really it. This is the faces of Marvel. And then finally, it wouldn't be complete without the Hugh Jackman, the X-Men Fox movie version of Wolverine. And with that, we have the Origins look, and then we have the Logan look. And you could just see the differences, the variety here when it comes to comic book versus movie. And overall, that is going to do it for the House of X Wolverine. Really, for me, just a great throwback, really just reminds me of what got me into collecting in the first place. And just doing the comparisons there, putting them next to all these classic Marvel characters, and really just the Marvel Legends, just such a colorful, such a wonderful line to have everybody in a display. And I think that this Wolverine is going to be prominent in my display of these figures, because I think this is definitely my go-to, my preferred Wolverine design. I'm sure there's differences, but I look at this and in my mind I see that version of Wolverine, and so for me that's pretty cool, and I'm glad to get this figure in a timely way, put out a video for it. As always, I'm going to leave this off with some figure photography, and you can see my whole library on Instagram, scoopman_5000. There's some other Marvel Legends and definitely some X-Men movie and the Hellfire Club, things like that are back on the channel, along with DC Multiverse, and then the wrestling figures, Ninja Turtles, everything in between, so you can go ahead and check that out. But that is going to do it for this video, and I'll see you guys in the next action figure review.